Hi everyone, I'm recording this from San Francisco at NCA because as you're watching this, I'm currently flying home to Ohio. So I'm going to discuss via this video on YouTube my master teacher observation with you. I had the pleasure of sitting in and talking with Dr. Gene Poor. He teaches in the business department. The class that I sat in on was an introduction to entrepreneurship class, which isn't a requirement, but it is a large lecture class. There are 50 students, and I have to be honest. When I view teaching, I like it, and it's something that I find fun, but it's not what I see myself doing, at least in the immediate future, as my main source of income. I really do like research, and teaching is tacked on to it, and I enjoy it, and I think it's important, but I feel that other people are much better at teaching than I. As many of us are trying to juggle grad school and teaching, often our teaching takes a back seat to our research and our own work, and I've been guilty of that, and I think I've grown complacent or jaded, maybe because we teach a lot of introductory courses where students are required to take it, and because of that, we become kind of disenchanted because it feels kind of like no matter what we do, we can't get students as engaged as we want them to. And so I think the main thing I got out of both watching Dr. Poor teach and talking to him is kind of, it shook me up. It made me remember why it is that I even ever considered academia and becoming an academic. The importance of teaching is paramount, and I think it's vital that we keep that in mind even when we have so much to do and it's hard to manage because we're products of the educational system, and if we reproduce poor teaching, then we're taking that away from students, taking away what we have had the opportunity to take advantage of. So as I said, Dr. Poor had 50 students in his class, so it's very easy to lose students, especially through lectures. But he gave this just outstanding, amazing lecture, and his use of PowerPoint was amazing. And he's not a young guy, and so his ability to work that technology so effectively and to be so keen into the students' interests. We've been talking a lot about millennials in class, and he was hitting everything that made sense to them. Some important kind of quotes that he was using in class was, if you Google yourself tonight, how many hits will you get? And that's how he kind of opened up the class to kind of get them to thinking about, okay, entrepreneurship, what does it mean for me? And he put it in their lingo, using Google, right? So that was really interesting, and he also started off with a whole slide even before the class started that said successful people make important decisions early in their life and then manage those decisions for the rest of their life. And so even from the moment I stepped foot in the classroom, it was apparent that he wasn't teaching content. He was teaching something far larger, more profound. And he directly addressed that in the 2 hours that we spoke after the class. So he lectured for an hour and a half and took 2 hours afterward just to speak with me very genuinely about what teaching meant to him. And he described teaching as showbiz. He said when you're up there in front of the students, especially with the newer generations, you put on a show and you have to gain their attention. But the content doesn't, it matters, but it's not his main focus when teaching. His main focus when teaching is, giving the students the tools to reflect on themselves and where they are, find what they love to do, and then do it. He wants to switch their thinking from asking the question, like many students come to professors and say, well, how do you do it? And he wants their question to be, how do I, the student, do it? And so he really wants them to take stake and ownership over their own lives and what they want to do. And he even spoke to in class about how for some students, a college degree isn't going to benefit them if they're already excelling far beyond their professors. He was specifically talking about this one art student that he knew, and saying, you know, why are you here? You're not learning anything because you're genuinely better than everyone here that could teach you. So you either need to go someplace where you can learn from someone who has the skills that exceed yours, or you need to get out and start making some money for yourself. He really speaks to how life is much more important than meeting these kind of arbitrary expectations that perhaps parents hold you to. And he was just so genuine, and I found myself watching his class and talking to him, wishing that I were actually a student in his class. So if any of you, we have all this free time because we don't do anything as grad students. So I recommend that if you get the opportunity to sit in his class, because I think you will definitely be moved. It was my first time meeting him, and I think this really speaks to him. So he spent 2 hours talking to me afterward about teaching, about me mostly. But he shared this story with me the moment that he knew that he was meant for teaching. And he was driving one night, and he was listening to a Paul Harvey radio show. And in the show, there was a story about a teacher, a woman who had this student, 3rd grade or 2nd grade, and the student wasn't performing well. And so the teacher didn't have a lot of time because, lots of students, lots of stuff to do. Didn't have a lot of time to dedicate to that one student, but she did look up at his old records and found out that his first 2 years of schooling, he had high marks, was doing outstanding. And so she thought it was kind of odd that he wasn't performing well. And so in a little scribble on the bottom of his last year's report card, it said, "Mom is sick and it's terminal." And between the summer between that last report card and coming into her class, she found out that his mom did pass. And so this was a kid facing a lot of life, and therefore not knowing what to do with it, wasn't performing well in class. And so, she thought, wow, this is interesting, but didn't really take any proactive steps to addressing it because, she had a full class, lots to do. And then Christmas break came, and students all brought gifts. And when the little boy came up with his gift, it was a brown lunch sack, kind of tattered, and in it was a used bottle of perfume and a bracelet, and a broken bracelet. Both items had been his mother's, and so the other kids instantly started laughing at him, and the boy's feeling horrible and kind of does this kind of thing, and the teacher goes, no, and puts the bracelet on, sprays the perfume, and it just changes the boy. I mean, he feels acknowledged and understood, and the remainder of the year she did it. She always wore that bracelet and continued to wear the perfume, and it made such a difference in the boy's life that even as he graduated to the next grade, to different schools, he went to college, he kept in contact with her, invited her to all his graduations, and then ended up calling her when he was getting married and asked her to stand in with him in the wedding. And so the story to Dr. Poor was so powerful that he actually pulled over to the side of the road and just started crying. And it was at that moment that he knew that that was his calling. And as Dr. Poor relayed this story to me and this experience to me, he too had tears in his eyes. I mean, it was completely moving because the story, while it has a good message, it really, if I had heard it, I don't think it would have really connected with me. But hearing him talk that way and being so comfortable with it, to get emotional in front of me, was just absolutely amazing. He is truly an inspiring person, And overall, what I got from this exercise was it was for me to rethink my teaching, because I had grown complacent in it. You know, and I whether it be teaching or whatever, I think his message to his students too applies to me, as with all of us in this class, and that we have to find what it is that we really want to do, what it is that we love, and do it. And if we do that, then we honor the legacy of people like Dr. Poor. And so, yeah, it was truly amazing, truly moving. I highly recommend anyone to sit in on his class. So, yeah, so I'm at Borders bookstore, and I think people are starting to look at me funny, so I'm gonna say bye. But I do have this paper the reflection paper, if anyone wants to get some more insight or talk to me when I return about Dr. Poor. I would be more than willing. He's someone that everyone should meet. So I will see you all, not next week because it's Thanksgiving, but in December. Bye.